Hey everybody, this is going to be a really fun and exciting episode. It's a different one, and so I hope that this is a blessing to you. This is for people who work in packaging, which is most everybody that's going to listen to a podcast about packaging. I'm excited to bring on Cory Carlson. Cory is a podcast host, so that's how we kind of connected. He hosts the Win at Home First podcast. We'll talk about that. He's an executive coach. He is a keynote speaker, and he is also the co-founder of the Rise community. We're going to get into all of that. And my hope and my prayer and my goal is that you take away one thing at least that you can put into your own practice at your job, whether your job is to run a press, is to ship stuff out, or it is to run a company. I think that you're going to get something from this episode here with Cory Carlson. Let's get going.
Hey, good evening or good morning or good afternoon. I don't know if that, do you say good afternoon? Yeah, that's a word. Whatever time you're listening to this podcast, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. It's considered TV, right? I'm guessing. We're live on the YouTube. Live on the YouTube. Not in Belarus, though. Told. For paper, you have to flatten it before you receive. I'm guessing they don't crush everything before they're collecting paper. Like 3D objects get routed away. If you leave your paper like a box, if you leave it assembled, the likelihood that it's going to get back goes down.
Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to listen to the people of packaging. What's going on, Cory?
What's up, Adam? I know I need a better intro to my own podcast, and I mean that was good stuff. That was fun.
Oh man, thank you. It's a family effort, which is actually appropriate for our conversation. So my 17-year-old not so tiny human produces hip hop music. So he makes beats and records them and does the whole thing. And so I was like, hey, can you maybe listen to some of my episodes and make me an intro? So that came from his creative brain. So shout out to AJ Peak for the intro. So if you need one.
Love that. Way to integrate family into your business.
Hey, I know that's what it's all about. Well, I mean, I had a buddy actually when I was a pastor in Colorado Springs, and I want to say they have 13. Like I lost track. I think they have 13 kids, and we were having dinner over at their house, and he was just like sitting back, and I was like, dude, this is something else. And he's like, I have middle managers, bro. Like I got a whole crew of people here that just like my life is pretty easy. I was like, it can't be that easy. He's like, it's really not that easy, but had a little bit of a joke, but it is true. I mean, many hands makes light work, I think is what Tupac said, or is that Buddha, or I can't remember who. Somebody famous said that phrase.
That's right.
So hey, I've got Cory Carlson on here, and this is fun. It's a little bit like a home and home if you're familiar with basketball. It's a back-to-back. So yesterday, I recorded an episode for Cory's Win at Home First podcast, and today he's coming on the People of Packaging podcast. So welcome to the show, Cory.
Thank you very much, Adam. Yesterday was a ton of fun talking, and I hope I could somewhat kind of repay you for the good conversation you gave me. So thank you.
Yeah, it's gonna be fantastic. Anytime you get two podcast hosts behind two mics, I'm sure it's just it's either a lot of fun or a lot of talking over one another. So we're just so used to being How long have you hosted a podcast, Cory?
I launched in April 2020, the best time to launch anything, right there in the middle of, a pandemic when people stop listening to podcasts because their commute is over.
So what's interesting about that, though, is that was actually, so I started my podcast in 2018 with my good friend, Ted Tate, who was a packaging engineer. And so we launched it, and it actually kind of started to take off in 2020, mostly not because of obviously the commute was still a thing, but there was just no online content really in my industry. And so that was when my listenership started to grow, is because people were like, well, I'm at home all day. I got to have something to listen to. There's got to be able to learn. And so I started to find more people. So it was a bit counterintuitive. Maybe it was just an industry thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's some truth to that for sure, because I did launch April 2020, so I have no data from before then. However, it was able to get going fast enough to keep doing it. And now I think you said you're about 300 episodes. We are at 200 episodes. So enough people kept showing up that I keep doing it. So
I love it.
It did work out. It did work out. It just was kind of a funny time to launch a new endeavor, but thankfully it all worked out.
And you've also authored 2 books. So you have Win at Home First, and then you have recently published, I'm not sure how recently, but Rise and Go. What is it like authoring a book? And I would imagine it's similar to generating podcast content. To me, like writing a book sounds like it's just sort of a daily habit of like, I'm going to write today. And a podcast is, I'm going to, record this week or this month. But there has to be a discipline to it. Is that accurate? I mean, I've never written a full length book. I've written a kid's book, but never, like a business kind of book.
Yeah, and for the listener who's maybe thinking about writing a book, and you got negative talk in there that, oh, I can't write a book. Man, maybe what I will share will encourage you to put your thoughts out in the world, because even though I've authored 2 books, I never thought of myself as a writer. I got a C in high school English. I am a civil engineer by degree, a sales guy by career. So writing was never something I thought of. The first book I wrote was called Win at Home First. The reason I wrote that book is because I lost at home first. Part of my story is a corporate guy who wanted to climb the ladder as fast as possible, and at the risk of some of my shrapnel being behind me, of just not being a great father, not being a great husband, because I was focused on work. And in the process, it was I lost. And I learned things to get back on track, to figure out how to be both a good father, a good husband, and a good leader. And through some quiet time, I just felt, God tell me, you need to hand over your story for a greater story. You need to write a book and share. And I heard it. I wasn't obedient. I didn't have the guts. I had the head trash of, I'm not an author. And what's crazy, Adam, is within a few weeks of that moment, all my clients said, you should write a book. It was hilarious. I mean, obviously I wasn't being obedient. So, God used people to help me to get it across. And then, Adam, when it came to actually writing the book, because I'm not a writer, I didn't know how to go about doing it. I just kind of started writing blogs. The book Went Home First is in 4 parts. The first part is you. Do you have a handle on yourself, your purpose, your priorities? The second part's on marriage, because that's the most important relationship we have. A good spouse will either double our impact, or a bad spouse, bad relationship could cut our impact in half.
Yeah.
And the third part's on parenting. How are we, leading our kids? And the last part number 4, is on work. So I had these 4 ideas I wanted to write about. So I just kind of started writing blogs. Hey, I want to write something on marriage. I want to write something on parenting. And then eventually I get to about a 50,000 word pile of probably just junk. And I reached out. I hired a writing coach to help me. He took those 50,000 words, and we just restructured it to how I actually did not have it in those 4 parts. That's what we landed on. And then I just had a writing coach, and we ended up moving things around. I got rid of some of the things I wrote. I wrote new parts. He'd say, that story's not very good. You need a better story. And before I knew it, here we had a 4-part book that was Went Home First. And it's been an amazing ride. It's all, I never thought it would have been received the way it has. Someone at Forbes magazine says 1 of 7 books everyone on your team should read. That was a huge blessing, and awesome. It just kind of started getting out there.
So, and this idea of winning at home first, we can hang out here for a quick second, because this isn't just for leaders, excuse me, who are trying to climb the corporate ladder. Especially in our industry, maybe not especially. I can only speak for the packaging industry, where we do a lot of grinding in terms of like there are jobs here, for example, where your job is to sit down and there's a strobe light going at a
Mhm.
certain pace as labels are flying past, and your job is to check to see if there is a quality error in those labels, and these things are flying, and you sit there and and this is a very real job. Your job is to load paper into a machine. Your job is to make sure that the press is running, or is to mix ink, or is to be a customer. Like, they're hourly jobs, they're salary jobs, but all of these jobs, to your point, can be you can be more effective or you can be less effective depending on what you do and what happens outside of your job. So
Mhm.
that's probably why somebody at Forbes would say that, is because it is so critical. Like, I get asked this quite frequently, actually, like, how do you do everything? And one
Mhm.
of my first answers is, I have an amazing relationship with my wife. And I don't say that I sometimes I say that and I'm like, I don't even have the words to describe how much I really truly love being with my wife and being home and hanging out with my kids. Like, that it brings me so much joy. But if my home life, and this is the reality for a lot of people, if my home life was chaotic, if my home life was difficult, um, which I'm not, that is a reality for people, right? I'm not trying to minimize this,
Mhm.
then that has such a huge impact on work. And so I think it's really important, not only for, you described yourself as that leader, not only for that person, it's important for everybody, even those of you who are not married. I would, like, if
Absolutely.
you don't have kids, if you're not married, it's, be healthy, like, have good healthy relationships, place boundaries with people, don't have, like, the whole thing. So I'm very passionate about that topic. I'm glad you already wrote a book on it so I don't have to.
That's right. No, it's good stuff. And the content of the book is for anyone, someone working on the machine or someone leading the team of working on the machine. I've had the opportunity to actually go into manufacturing companies as well as other industries and actually talk to people from the floor
Yeah.
and share this content. But Adam, just to encourage like the listeners, if there's a listener who hears you say, and I would say the same thing, I love being home. Like just like you, I love spending time with my wife. I love spending time with my kids, just as you mentioned. But for that listener who hears that and they're just like, but that's not me. And it also was not me at different times as well. And with intentionality, you can course correct. You can start to make different improvements. Actually, I had a client happened to be in manufacturing where was had a significant disconnect with his daughter. They were not getting along at all, and that was what was weighing heavy on him. So here he is overseeing quality for is about 40 plants throughout the world. That was his job, overseeing the quality. But yet, when he got to the coaching calls, what he wanted to talk about was his mindset towards his daughter because that was affecting him. Because the work wins don't offset the losses at home.
Right.
It just doesn't do it. And so here's what we did, Adam, with this client. I've done it before because I learned it myself. Having to do is every morning I had this individual write down what he loves about his daughter because what we focus on expands. And so because he was writing down what he loved about his daughter, then he got to see more of those traits, characteristics when they were together, as opposed to maybe what annoyed him. And because of that practice, doing it every morning for a few weeks, it got better for him. And the reason I knew it worked for him is because it worked for me. Because
Mm.
there's been times in my marriage where my wife and I were to disconnect, not seeing each other, in the right light. And I started doing that myself, writing down what I loved about my wife. Because here's what's interesting, Adam, is if I am thinking how she's annoying or not supportive of me or supportive of my travels or my work, if she says anything negative, that's all I'm going to hear. If she says something positive, I won't hear it. because I'm just focused on what's negative. On the flip side, when I'm in a mindset and a posture of writing out why I love her, what I'm focused on, if she says something negative, it almost bounces off me like I got Kevlar on or something. And so, anyways, it just works. So if you are that listener who is like, I want to improve my marriage, I want to improve my relationship with my kids, that's one way to do it. Write down what you do, in fact, love about them and start to put some intentionality in what you're focusing on in the relationship.
And I love how you pulled packaging in with the mention of Kevlar, which is a form of packaging.
There you go. Sweet. That was an accident.
Yeah, I love that idea. It's so relevant to really any relationship, right? So if you're thinking about, I don't really like this coworker or my boss or whatever it, like, you're going to have problems. It really does force you to make two distinct decisions. Number one, it forces you to say, I want to have a better relationship with that person. And that desire, I don't think a lot of people realize is of critical importance, because without that first thought, you're probably not going to do the second one. And the second one forces you to, like you said, look at them through that different lens every day for however long. I think it's a great, simple, very practical idea that really anybody can take, because there's got to be somebody in your life that you're like, I don't like them and I don't want to be around them. And if you desire to have a good relationship, if you have to work with them, or if you have to be married to them, or if they're your child, then take these steps. I think that's an incredible step. I would love to hear a little bit about, so you have Win at Home First, and you have this book, Rise and Go. So tell me a little bit, how are they maybe connected, or are they two sort of different thoughts, or did Rise and Go come from something that was happening in Win at Home First?
Yeah, they are not connected from the standpoint of there's not a part one, part two. The only connection is it's my story. It's a part of my journey for both books. And, the kind of a joke I have said before is, if I write a third book, someone could be like, oh, something bad must happen in his life. Because, Win at Home First, I wrote that book because I lost. I figured out how to win. That's what that book's about. Rise and Go is really a story of me getting knocked down and then getting back up. And really, the whole thesis of Rise and Go is that all leaders get knocked down, whether it's a big knockdown, a health scare, a divorce, whatever it may be, to something small. You just had a crappy day, or maybe a bad week. All leaders get knocked down. It's just the great leaders get back up quicker. And so what could it look like in your life if the next time you got knocked down, you're able to get up quicker? And that is what Rise and Go is about. So I stair-stepped from corporate America, where I worked. I was in sales of construction products, and started out in Kansas City, got promoted, moved to Denver, where I managed a bunch of people, and then got promoted.
Go Nuggets, right? Go Denver.
That's Nuggets. Right. Go Nuggets.
All right.
You got that nugget there on the top shelf back there, right?
Not many people can host a packaging podcast with an Andre Miller Russian nesting doll set.
Yes, everybody needs one of those.
Everybody needs a Russian nesting doll, Andre Miller, in a Denver Nuggets in their background of their podcast.
That's right. So Nuggets, and then I got transferred to Cincinnati. When I was in Cincinnati, I basically was vice president of a $120 million division, a little bit in over my head as far as imposter syndrome, managing people older than me. I leapfrogged my boss. I was now managing him. So it just came to this point where I needed help. And that's when I hired a coach. Well, in the process, I love being coached because I just got better. I got better at life. It wasn't just about a clean email inbox and a perfect looking P&L, profit and loss statement, but it was about purpose and priorities. So what ended up happening for me, Adam, is I wanted to go do coaching for a living. I didn't have the guts to go do it. So starting in about 2016, I stair-stepped from corporate into coaching, and I left corporate, started to do about 50% of coaching, with 50% of helping another a manufacturer with sales and marketing. It went 50-50. And then I went 75%, 25%, and then 90-10 to March 1st, 2020. I went all in into coaching.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. That's right. 2020 is a big year for me.
Yeah.
And March 13th, we all know kind of what happened with COVID, but Friday the 13th, which I'm not a big superstitious guy, but it is weird, on Friday the 13th when all the shutdown happened. On that day, I got a couple emails canceling speaking engagements and workshops. And on that day, our 35% of my revenue vanished, gone. And I know there's listeners who had much worse situations with COVID, even deaths. And sorry for that. And I get it. For my family and I, 35% of revenue when we just jumped into this was scary, and just, it was frustrating. I was frustrated with God. It's like, hey, I did everything, part of this journey. I left corporate. I did the 50-50, 75-25, 90-10 to 100-0. I did my part. And then where are you at? And I've lost 35% of revenue. I could lose more. Where's the other 65%? What's going to happen?
Right.
And over the course of really those next few months and even that year, I went on this journey. And it was in the summer of 2020. I just started hearing podcasts, stories of resilience. I got pointed at different verses in Acts 8, 9, and 10 in the New Testament, in the ESV, English Standard Version translation, that 3 different times, 3 different individuals are told to rise and go. And as I'm reading that and thinking of it in my own life, I just kind of felt this nudge of, get out of my pity party of poor me and where'd my revenue go and what's going to happen, but instead to rise and go and to be bold and courageous and step out. And that began the journey of me stepping out. And so the book is it's 20 chapters. First 10 chapters will give you the courage to get back up. The next 10 chapters are to give you the confidence to move forward. And so the book Rise and Go is a lot of my story for sure, but I've weaved in other stories of resilience to give the reader hope and tools to get back up. And it's been fun. It's been fun to see the impact it's had on folks.
Is one of those tools a free download of the classic song by Chumbawamba?
Yeah, I get knocked down. I get up again. That's right. That's right. It's me singing it. It's amazing. It's a lot.
It's the karaoke version, the Cory Carlson karaoke version of Chumbawamba. No, I think that sounds incredible, and obviously it's something I think most people, if they're honest, they can really relate to. Again, not just leaders, but a lot of folks. I'm curious on the coaching side, and we'll kind of wrap things up here with this, is as you have leaned into coaching, is it, are you doing a lot of like executive coaching? Is it sales team coaching? You mentioned, VP of operations. So is it, operational excellence? Where do you sort of focus? Because you're only one person. I have to imagine you haven't figured out a way to multiply time and participate. Like, what was that movie with Michael Keaton? Multiplicity. You don't probably have multiple people around. So where are some areas that you really focus in on coaching people and walking them through a coaching? I'm a huge believer in coaching, by the way. I think it is wildly necessary. One of the best things that I did was I hired a sales coach when I first got into sales. I went and I met with this guy who co-founded OtterBox, the cell phone case company. His name's Pete Richardson. And he wasn't involved in the business anymore. And I spent an intensive 2 days with him mapping out my a lot of life plans. And I still have that to this day. This was like 2012. I still will get it out. I have all the papers that we went through. I'll still look at it. Hey, how am I doing? Do I need to adjust?
Great.
So I think it is incredibly valuable. So what type of coaching do you primarily focus on?
Yeah, so you mentioned scale, which is for sure a real thing. And so what I've done is I've added coaches to the team. So I've got coaches on team just so we can go service, a handful of people from a company or a lot
Sure.
of people from a company, which has been pretty cool. And then for me on my coaching, I do one-on-one coaching, which obviously is higher touch, but it's also higher investment. And not everyone can afford that or want that. So then I also have group coaching, which is you bring in, it could be a group of 5, it could be a group of 10 or so on a Zoom call, and we'll do that together. And then also recently, I just launched the Rise community, where it is for faith forward men who are committed to win at home and win at work. And so we're doing weekly coaching calls, and we have an online platform where folks are engaging. And what's crazy, Adam, is we launched this January 1st. So we're 6 weeks in. We've got 57 guys in there from 18 states across all industries. There actually are a couple, I know for sure, maybe there's more in the packaging, that are in there. And there's wealth managers, there's guys in construction. I mean, it's wild how it's just taking off. But that's been a way to scale and have a lot of fun, but also learn. I mean, I'm learning from, these guys. When you have communities like this, a lot of people do AMAs, ask me anything. Like that's kind of a trendy thing, this community coaching space, as you have seen. When my business partner on this says, hey, you need an AMA call, I was like, man, sure. I mean, I would love to answer a lot of questions. That'd be cool, fun. But as I was thinking about it more, I was like, I want to hear from the community. Like there's better guys in this community than me. I mean, there's a guy in there running a 400-person company. There's another guy that's, a vice president of a 1,000-person company. It's like, and there's people, I got a guy in there with 9 kids. There's people who've been divorced, remarried. I mean, there's so many life experiences. I was like, I want to hear from them, not me. So we have ACA, Ask the Community thing. And it has been a blast, those
That's awesome.
calls. So that's what I've been just doing with coaching is I've had one-on-one programs, had 200 plus guys go through the coaching, and then also now doing community things because, well, guys also want community.
Right.
Here's what I found to be so true, Adam, in my coaching, whether it's someone working a machine, staring at that blinking light, as you mentioned, or someone is running that company, life can get lonely. And especially for men don't have a lot of community and they are lonely, and leadership is lonely at the top. And what I found to be what I love about coaching is coming alongside these leaders and helping them out to realize that they are not alone. The thoughts of imposter syndrome, the thoughts of, am I doing enough? And some even have that heavier question, am I enough? And what does that look like? And whether it's one-on-one coaching or it's through community, it's just able to come alongside these leaders to help them live into the best version of themselves.
I love that. Well, hey, listen, if you're listening to this, I encourage you to connect up with Cory on LinkedIn. I'll have the link down in the show notes. You can click right on that. What's the best way for them to get a hold of some books if one or both of those books, are they on Audible?
Win a Home First is on Audible.
Okay.
Both books are on Amazon.
Okay.
And yeah, check them out there.
Rise Community, I'll have a link down there for that as well. So that I'll just try to make it easy for people to point and click at stuff.
Yeah.
That seems to be, instead of having to, ask Jeeves or Yahoo search
or have them type anything in. We can't have that. That's
no. We can't. We definitely can't have that. Cory, this has been a tremendous pleasure, not only to be on your podcast yesterday, to share a little bit of my story, but then to hear about you and about your journey. And, I'll kind of leave you. There's a quote from a hip hop artist that you just came into my brain when you were talking about kind of the Rise community and what he was going through at the time. He said, he said, I'm searching for Christ's face because down here it's lonely at the top. And I just thought, like, that's how a lot of people feel, right? Like they're looking for something, they feel down, but they're also at the top, right? Like this kind of weird conundrum that I think a lot of people find themselves in. And so I'm sure there's a lot of people who resonate with that. If you guys want an introduction to Cory, I'm happy to make it as well. Thank you so much for coming on the show and opening up about your story and showing that, packaging isn't just about making cool stuff, and it's also about people. And thank you for helping out people in our industry. It's really great.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Adam, for having me on. I appreciate it. And yeah, for the listener, if you just heard one thing that is helpful, apply that and then add something else. I know we can all get information overload, but to have true transformation, it's information plus implementation.
Love that. Well, thank you, Cory.
Thank you.